A top story first. India's office market may have cooled marginally in the first half of 2026, but South India continues to anchor demand. Bengaluru, in fact, retained its position as the country's largest office market, accounting for nearly a quarter of all leasing activity in both Q2 as well as the first half of the year. Now, the city also remains the top destination for multinational occupiers, attracting almost one-third of all overseas leasing while leading the country in net absorption, an indicator that companies here are actually moving into the spaces they've gone on to lease. Hyderabad, not to be left out, emerged as one of the strongest performers, with office leasing growing 17.6% year-on-year and net absorption rising over 31%, thereby pointing to sustained expansion by occupiers. Chennai, meanwhile, posted modest leasing growth of 2.2% and captured nearly 14% of India's Q2 leasing activity. However, net absorption here dipped slightly, suggesting some lag between leasing and occupancy in the city. Vacancy levels, meanwhile, have continued to fall across Bengaluru, Hyderabad and Chennai, reflecting tightening supply of quality office space. The broader trend, however, remains intact, and that's global capability centers. GCCs, in fact, accounted for nearly 42% of all leasing activity in India during the first half of the year, reinforcing South India's position as the country's preferred destination for global firms expanding engineering, AI, data science, and digital operations. So to speak to us about what these findings mean for office markets in the big three South markets here, I'm now joined by Rohan Sharma, Senior Director for Research at JLL India. Rohan, welcome to the show. Let's look at the South Indian office markets bit by bit. And let's start with Bengaluru, Rohan. Now, the city continues to dominate India's office market. In fact, I sometimes wonder, is this simply because of its mature tech ecosystem, or are you essentially seeing fresh demand from sectors beyond IT and GCCs that could sustain this lead over the next 5 years?
Right. First of all, thank you, Jude, for having me. Look, a quick thing that one needs to understand is, IT and GCCs no longer are complementary words, right? GCCs by themselves have become significantly diversified in the kind of operations and sectors that operate out of the country. The same holds true for even a market like Bengaluru. It is our biggest tech cluster, and it is also our biggest GCC cluster. But the GCC demand within Bengaluru is no longer a tech story by itself. It's increasingly being driven by engineering manufacturing firms setting up R&D centers, by banking and financial services setting up their software development centers. Effectively, over the last 3.5 years, while tech was the major play, uh, these two segments, engineering R&D as well as BFSI, together accounted for 45% of all space take up by GCCs, essentially telling you the segments kind of gotten diversified. Even within engineering and R&D, you are looking at segments like aerospace, industrial manufacturing, biosciences, which are advanced manufacturing, which are taking up larger spaces as well. And that tells you the story about Bengaluru's overall ecosystem kind of diversifying. The city by itself also has strong industrial linkages. Those are also translating into more R&D work coming into those segments, including around life sciences. Right. So essentially, it's no longer a tech story. You're going to see these segments and continue to drive demand as well going forward.
Encouraging aspects of the Bengaluru story, really, that it's moved beyond tech, Rohan. But let's shift focus to Hyderabad next. In fact, the city has posted one of the strongest growth rates in the country. What's driving momentum here, really? Are companies expanding existing campuses, or are you seeing a meaningful influx of first-time GCCs and multinational occupiers?
So for Hyderabad, Jude, what's happening is there's a bunch of factors that are kind of driving that momentum, right? It's actually has been the fastest growing city in terms of real estate stock added over the last 3.5 years. The stock's nearly grown by 33%. Obviously, that's backed by strong demand momentum, right? Of course, you also have support in terms of proactive government policy, uh, infrastructure that's doing very well, plus deep talent pool as well. Now, there are companies obviously which have been here for the past 5 to 10 years. They are now essentially expanding, as well as consolidating in high premium quality tech parks. What is also encouraging to see that the city itself is kind of becoming a very, very viable alternative to market like Bangalore, where a lot of GCCs entering the country sometimes for the first time, or looking to set up their second base of operations, are looking at Hyderabad, right? So you essentially, if you look at it from last year, and our data tells us, you had more new GCCs set up shop in Hyderabad last year than even Bengaluru, right? And in the first half of the year as well, the story continues to look very similar, where newer entrants to Hyderabad are higher. Uh, Even NASCOM data tells the same thing, that 50% of all new banking financial services GCCs that came into the country last year went to Hyderabad first. So it's a market that's seeing that shift, right? And there are structural drivers that play that kind of created this shift over this period of time.
You bring up that point because for the longest time we've actually been having this conversation about how Bengaluru's spillover could actually mean good news for both Hyderabad and Chennai. So let's talk about Chennai next and cap off our roundup of these top three south markets that we analyze. The city's leasing growth has grown, but what really interests me and intrigues me, Rohan, is that net absorption here has actually declined. Should that be viewed as a temporary timing issue, or does it point to a different demand profile when compared to, let's say, both Bengaluru and Hyderabad that have seen growth in both areas? What's going on in Chennai with these contradicting, numbers and data on the leasing and occupancy front?
Chennai is an interesting market. What's happening really is really seeing a crunch in vacancy, especially across core markets and high quality buildings. Vacancies in most key office clusters are in single digits and low single digits, so to speak. What's really happening, you don't have enough quality supply available for immediate occupancy. Whatever is coming on, which kind of translates into net absorption, is basically cyclical vacancy that comes on due to leasing expiries. But it's mostly a timing issue, where currently, you are in a supply crunch market. So a lot of deals keep happening, as there's tenant turnover in building as they move from one building to another. But essentially, from a net absorption perspective, you need high quality vacancy available as well. So it's a good problem to have at this point in time, right? Where the market's kind of really seeing demand chasing high quality building where there's not enough supply, right? That's the situation in China as of date. But the demand profile is not really different. The only thing that you can really talk about differently for Chennai is it has always had a very strong industrial base and manufacturing base. That has kind of always led to a higher demand from engineering GCCs going to that city. But other than that, typically it's been a city that's kind of really taken its performance up a notch over the last 2 to 3 years.
Right. And on the topic of vacancy levels itself, let's take a look at what these numbers are like across Bengaluru, Hyderabad, and Chennai, where you're seeing more or less tightening of vacancies, across these cities. Now, could this eventually become a constraint on growth itself? And are you already seeing shortages of Grade A office spaces in key micro markets, given the fact that you're seeing an across-the-board tightening when it comes to vacancy levels?
Absolutely, Jude. What we're seeing today is, if you look at the core markets in Bengaluru, which happens to be the outer ring road, your vacancies are in single digits. You look at markets like Whitefield, where the demand has been so strong, even the vacancies there have nearly reached single digits. On this other hand, in Hyderabad, you have markets like High Tech City, Raidurg, where again vacancies have fallen to single digits as well, and spillover demand kind of moving on to Gachibowli Financial District and going forward. We already spoken about Chennai, right? It's not technically a constraint to growth. What we are seeing is there is a good pipeline of supply that's coming in. What is also happening is, for among this supply, the high quality buildings are actually witnessing strong pre-leasing activity, which essentially tells you that clients are kind of signing up for these buildings upfront. So it's not really a constraint, really. It's like I said, it's a good problem at this point in time. but the supply pipeline across all these three cities kind of remain pretty strong. So you have the ability to really, soak up all this demand as it comes on ground. But in the short term, yes, you may see, some kind of disruption which may happen because high quality buildings vacancy may be slightly tight. But again, the pipeline should take care of it as we move forward.
Focus now from the cities to certain segments. I'm almost bored of the number of times I talk about this, but the fact is that GCCs, ever the growth driver, they now account for nearly 42% of all office leasing transactions in the country. When it comes to South, it's a story that we keep hearing over and over again. The fact is that this region leads the rest when it comes to GCC absorption, GCC transactions and deals as well. Which South Indian city, according to your analysis, is best placed to attract the next wave of GCCs in AI, semiconductors, electronics, and even advanced manufacturing for that matter? You did talk about how Hyderabad is perhaps the most well poised, even beating Bengaluru in many ways. In the medium term, which of these three big South Indian cities could in fact lead the race?
No, honestly, Jude, if you ask me, there's no single city answer to this question, right? You need structural drivers for cities to be displaced from their leadership positions, and over a period of time, cost premiums will only play a certain role. It will be the depth of talent pool that will decide the strategy for any tenant or any occupier across any segment. Bengaluru obviously seems to be the best placed, given that it already has good talent availability on AI, and has deep tech talent, and has that kind of sort shown the evidence of that kind of work there as well, right? On the other hand, you have markets like Hyderabad, which are kind of finding their own niche in segments like semiconductor manufacturing and fabrication, and even life sciences and pharma, right? Chennai, on the other hand, we spoke about it, strong industrial base leading to a lot of cutting edge work around automotive sectors, including EV ecosystems, right? I would say from a applied AI kind of role perspective, you will still see Bangalore lead, but AI operations development could move to could see a certain firms also looking at Hyderabad as a very strong alternative. Chennai kind of has its own advantages, where the engineering segment will kind of continue to grow. So semiconductors, GCCs around that segment should really do very well. But AI still kind of remains very centered towards markets like Bangalore.
Bring up AI because this is one question I'm sure that everyone wants to hear the answer to. The fact is AI is quickly reshaping the way companies work, that businesses are run. In your analysis, are occupiers now taking less space per employee? I know that the overall objective with AI is to bring down the number of, the amount of costs spent per employee. But in terms of space per employee per se, Rohan, is AI doing that in terms of lesser space required per employee? Or do you think the tech can actually create new categories of jobs that could in turn continue to drive office demand in South India?
Dude, one of the key things that we talk about now is how can my office, how much space. I'm not answering the question of how much space I need. I'm talking about how can my office be a magnet for the kind of talent I want to employ, right? Essentially, what it means is I'm using my office as a strategy to drive my talent strategy. What is essentially happening is AI will end up reshaping job roles. You will see we are already seeing new categories of jobs being created. In fact, in India, the whole GCC story on the AI side is being driven by newer roles on the AI side getting created, which are becoming so. There are roles which are AI native, around AI workloads, AI production, algorithm creation, which are getting created in India. These are roles that are new, will ultimately obviously replace roles that are more repetitive in nature, but new categories around data scientists and all of these new roles will actually allow you to see that you need offices of a different nature, right? Sometimes you may move from a more open office layout to maybe of a more not from a collaborative but more focused areas as well. So it's going to not just reshape job roles, it's going to reconfigure your office space as well. But do you need less office space? The question, is answered two ways. One, on a per person
Right,
space perspective, companies actually allocate more space because they want open layouts or they want larger spaces. They
right,
don't make people feel constrained. It's the magnet, right? So not really seeing that trend play
right.
out. So yeah.
Well, exciting times ahead, Rohan, even as the country and the South enters this new AI era, with a lot of anticipation in terms of how space requirements might change. But for the interim, South India then leading the rest when it comes to both transactions and absorption. On that note, thank you so much for joining us and breaking down these insights for us right here
Thank
on
you.
South Central. Moving on, Hyderabad has added another feather to its cap as India's fast-growing digital infra hub. Telangana Chief Minister Revant Reddy has broken ground for Amazon Web Services' new hyperscale data center in the state's Bharat Future City project. The facility is part of Amazon's long-term cloud infra expansion in Telangana and is one of the largest technology investments in the state's history. The project is expected to strengthen Hyderabad's position as a preferred destination for cloud computing, AI, and digital infra. The Telangana government has allocated land for the campus and says the investment will generate jobs and attract allied tech businesses. The development also aligns with the state's broader push to build Bharat Future City into a next-generation tech and innovation hub. Shifting focus to Kerala next, the state's proposed high-speed rail corridor has been put on hold, with the state government deciding to undertake a fresh and detailed assessment before moving ahead with the ambitious plan. Now, for context, the infra project in question was proposed by none other than Kerala-based technocrat, more fondly called the state's Metro Man, E. Sridharan. However, after considering the proposal, the Kerala cabinet, we're told, has accepted the findings made by an expert panel that in turn found the proposal incomplete and in need of a more comprehensive evaluation. In fact, speaking about the project proposal, Kerala Chief Minister V.D. Satheesan said his government would not initiate land acquisition or other preparatory work until the proposal's economic, environmental and logistical aspects are fully examined. In fact, these comments also come even as the expert committee in question, entrusted with studying the project, highlighted the absence of an environmental impact assessment and even raised concerns over the project's financial model. In fact, that panel also recommended a broader study on how the corridor could integrate with Kerala's existing metro systems, including ports and inland waterways. In fact, speaking of Kerala itself and moving on to Karnataka next, the state is staring at the prospect of another drought year. Chief Minister D.K. Shivkumar has written to Prime Minister Modi seeking urgent central assistance as a weak southwest monsoon begins taking a toll on the state. The Chief Minister has requested the centre to depute a team to assess the ground situation in Karnataka, warning that a deficient rainfall this year has already delayed Kharif sowing. In fact, reduced reservoir storage and increased stress on agriculture, drinking water supply and rural livelihoods have also compounded the issue that Karnataka is facing at this time and place. In fact, as of earlier this week, the state recorded a 30% deficit in rainfall, receiving just 203 millimeters of rain as against the normal 292 millimeters that it tends to receive this time every year during the southwest monsoons. 18 of the state's 31 districts and about 141 of its 240 taluks are reporting deficient to severely deficient rainfall, even as the state government has also said that it is initiating contingency measures and increased water conservation efforts. Karnataka is now seeking financial and logistical support from the centre to mitigate the impact on farmers and rural communities. Meanwhile, Bengaluru has recorded its hottest day in July over the last 112 years, with mercury touching 33.6 degrees Celsius, breaking a record that has stood since 1914. Weather officials attributed the unusual spike to a weak southwest monsoon, reduced cloud cover, and below normal rainfall over the city. In fact, the unseasonal heat that Karnataka grapples with has also led to a rainfall deficit, which in turn has raised concerns over changing weather patterns and the impact of a faltering monsoon across the state. Moving on, yet another case of custodial death in Tamil Nadu has triggered widespread outrage. This after a 35-year-old remand prisoner, Sabari Varman, died inside the Nagarkoil sub-jail. 3 prison officials, including the chief warden, have now been arrested after a post-mortem report revealed multiple injuries on the victim's body, which in turn prompted a criminal investigation into the incident. Sabari had been remanded to judicial custody after being accused of selling banned tobacco products. His family has now alleged custodial torture and is demanding justice. Times Network's Dharni now joins us with the details of this case.
35-year-old Sabari Varman was arrested on the 9th of July by the Nagarkoil police for illegally possessing and selling tobacco products. But on the night of the 12th of July, we are given to understand that a physical altercation broke out inside the Nagarkoil district jail, in which he was subjected to physical assault by the prison personnel. So right now we are given to understand that 3 wardens, they've been arrested by the police department, and they've also been suspended from their respective jobs, and further investigations are currently underway. The post-mortem report of Sabari Varman is revealing that there are 19 injury marks on his body, and majority of them, they are external injury marks. So this is a clear-cut evidence that he was subjected to physical assault inside the prison premise on the night of 12th of July. So right now, as I told, 3 prison wardens, they've got arrested. They've also been suspended. Further investigations are currently underway. Let's wait and see if any more people, if they are getting arrested in connection with this particular incident. But meanwhile, the opposition is questioning the TVK government over this incident. The opposition is claiming that a 35-year-old innocent man has lost his life because of the police brutality under the TVK government. On the other hand, the TVK has been remaining silent on this matter since its beginning.
Moving on the day the India-UK Comprehensive Economic Trade Agreement has come into effect, ET Now spoke to Commerce Secretary Rajesh Agarwal on the deal and the impact it will have on the Indian economy and trade. Let's listen in to a slice of that exclusive conversation.
I think for businesses, many areas which they were exporting to UK, the duties go down. 99% of the tariff lines in UK now do go down to 0 for India. So that means all our textiles, all our leather, footwear, apparel, agriculture goods go down to 0 duty, and that's a big win for our Indian industry. And Indian industry, which are already present in UK market, should be able to take good advantage of it. And new industry, new startups, new MSMEs should also be able to leverage it. For consumers also, this means good quality products, technology products, products which we are dependent on UK for import. Those products can come out cheaper, and that will be available in the market for them cheaper. Cars has been a good aspiration. I think many Indians on the who meet me about India-UK SICA keep me asking when the cars will start coming in. Absolutely. Because the aspirational India look for a different quality, different types of cars, and that is also something that they will get in equal measure. So I think it is a win-win from both consumer perspective and also from a very business perspective, which opens up big doors and big opportunities for them.
Well, with that, it's a wrap on the bulletin today. Thanks so much for watching. South Central will be back tomorrow with more news and updates from the region. But for the moment, it's goodbye from us.